We are now recording.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Tim Selden. I'm the president of the Montessori Foundation and chair of the International Montessori Collaborative. Tonight's meeting is hosted by the foundation and the IMC. However, it is open to everyone, and it is part of our collaborative efforts working with AMS, AMI, McCarthy, and other Montessori leaders around the world to try to provide help and support to Montessori schools, Montessori teachers, and Montessori parents. Jonathan Wolf, Kitty Bravo, Christine Lowry are just three of our collaborative teams of leaders, and we'll be trying to facilitate the meeting. I'll be watching for emails and trying to help people from behind the scenes. So let's begin. Christine, would you like to frame tonight's conversation?
Okay, so thank you, Tim, and thank you all of you who have joined in this evening. Again, we apologize for the technical issues, but we know that we're all dealing with that these days, so thank you for being patient with us. Last night's meeting was very successful in terms of gathering a lot of information. We're hoping to be able to do that this evening as well, to give all of you a chance to share your questions, your concerns, and you know what you need to share right now. You can do that in the chat, or you can do it by unmuting yourself and just jumping in. As you can see right now, while I'm speaking, my thumbnail is outlined in green, so that's how we will know who is speaking at any given time. Okay, I wanted to share a little bit with you. There were some things that came up last night that I suspect would be questions and issues and concerns that many of you might have. I wanted to let you know what is in the works to support those issues. We have put together we've taken a look at who are the stakeholders here that we would like to serve and support. And that would be school administrators, teachers, educators, parents, children, teacher education programs, and our adult learners. To do the work that needs to be done, we have divided up into a number of task force teams. So I'm going to explain each team what they are working on. That was an issue that came up last night. Okay, somebody has started screen sharing, so if you could unshare that, that would be great, so that we can see everybody. Just click on that.
Lisa A, please unshare.
There, Lisa, there's a box on the bottom, about in the middle. There's an icon. It's a green box with an arrow in it. I'll just make sure that you click on that, and that will get us back where we need to be.
Just keep going, Christine.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody can hear you.
So the first team, task force team, is the technology team. This is a team that will be working with Google Group. We're hoping to set up something called Google Sites that will be the location of all of the resources. There were lots of questions last night about where is all this information going to be stored. It will be stored in categories, it'll be stored in buckets, and we will get everybody the link when that is available. All of these resources will be there, they will be organized, they will be curated, and you'll be able to pick and choose the ones that are most useful for you. Part of the technology team effort that we will be making very, very soon, hopefully this week, is a meeting like this that will be on how do you use Zoom? How do you use the technology? Not everybody is familiar or comfortable with it, so we'll be providing that. We'll also be looking at equity issues and resources for ways that schools can access various platforms such as Zoom. And we understand that there's some free opportunities being offered out there, so we'll be collecting all that information. Another big topic last night was how can we expect parents to pay tuition when schools are closed? We're putting together templates. There's going to be an economic, thank you, Lisa. There's going to be an economic impact team. That team will be responsible for putting together various templates, for providing various resources There were a lot of requests yesterday for templates for communication letters. How do you communicate with your parent population to help them understand why continuing to pay tuition is very important, and how you're going to work with them to keep the community together virtually until we can all be together live and in person. So all of those issues will be handled by the economic impact team. Again, there will be resources, and those resources will be in an area where you will have the link and you'll be able to access that. They'll also be looking at paying teacher wages and paying hourly wage staff. There was some information that came out today from some federal offices about the requirement, basically, that hourly wage employees continue to be paid if it's a government shutdown. I understand that the House of Representatives is looking at making some adaptations to that rule. But again, we will have all that information available for you. There's a communication team task force. That team will be responsible for all things communication. So not only will they have various templates for communication for you to use with your parents, but they'll also help with what does a sequence of communication look like. We know during this time that one of the very large problems that's going to be very stressful is isolation and feeling like our communities, our schools are breaking apart. So having a communication plan with regular communication in a regular schedule that you can share with parents, with children, with your staff to keep your faculty together, that idea of maintaining the community connections that we have and helping everybody to continue to feel part of this strong community that you've built in your school. So there'll be a lot of template resources there. Kitty is the lead on the curriculum content task force. And Kitty, would you like to present that, or do you want me to just go ahead and?
No, I'd be happy to talk about what we're doing.
Okay.
We're meeting in with experienced Montessorians at each level with level teams. The first thing we're doing, Christine mentioned already, is within the next few days, we will be announcing a series of how to use Zoom at your level with children. So it'll be the basics of how to actually use Zoom with some ideas of how, what could you possibly do with toddlers in a Zoom meeting, and we'll give you some ideas. We're going to be putting together and curating resources. So we know there's a lot of things going out there right now, but trying to vet some of it before we send it out to say these are good ideas to use for your classrooms. When we met yesterday for the first time, the teams were pretty much in agreement that we as Montessorians will know what to teach. We just maybe need some ideas and how do we do this. I know today I got an email from somebody who said, I don't have a clue how to teach without my materials. And, so a lot for us is not so much, here's a unit of study to do with your kids, but ideas of how you can present this and structure a day of work. So we're going to be looking at providing a number of different resources to help support you.
And again, those will be in that resource bank that you will have a link to. Thank you, Kitty. We also have a self-care team task force. That team will be working on the very important task of helping all of us to remain as calm as we can, to be co-regulated with our students when we're working with them. So that self-care team will be working on ideas and resources for supporting school administrators with that hat that they're wearing. They have a set of stresses that other stakeholders might not have. We'll be looking at how we support teachers and educators who are trying to keep their students connected and still provide some education moving forward. We will also be providing some resources and ideas for parents and helping them throughout this time and children. So that self-care group will be looking at a lot of the stakeholder groups and providing a lot of resources. And as we have more and more of those available and we kind of flesh out what those are going to look like, we will be sharing those with you. John is on that committee with me. John, did you want to add anything?
I just wanted to add something we talked about last night. Part of this self-care task force will also be sharing how to speak to different age children about what's happening in the world. So it's emotionally safe for children. We're giving them meaningful information, but in a way that they can receive it and in the amount that they can receive it. So it's neither an underload or an overload. That'll be part of the self-care task force support group.
Thank you. And we will be, John and I will be hosting with Kathy, maybe Tim, a webcast on Wednesday at 1 o'clock Eastern. The link for that was the same link that you used to get into this meeting. And the kind of the working title is, how do we talk to children when the grown-ups are scared? So we'll be looking at each of the levels in Montessori and how do we communicate, what's the developmentally appropriate, the right amount of information, and how do
Christine,
we...
you need to correct something there. It's not the same. It's our normal weekly webinar. We may have a meeting on that topic using Zoom, especially once we've solved the technological, but our GoToWebinar will take thousands of people without any problem. So if you go to Montessori.org, go to the home page, you'll see right under the first little template where it says who we are, there'll be news and announcements. Go there, and any upcoming webcasts or meetings will be listed there, including the link to sign up for the weekly webcasts, which are free to anyone who wants to participate, just as what we're doing now.
Great, thank you so much, Tim. When the email went out about this town meeting with the link, it said that the link was the same, so I'm glad you clarified that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
I don't know how we'll deal with that. We'll figure a solution.
Yeah, okay. There's also a parent support task force team that will be looking, in addition to self-care, we'll be looking at not to help parents deliver content to their children, but parenting tips, basically, because working parents are still working. They're going to need some support in how do I have my child at home, especially if it's a young child. How do I have my child at home and still get my work done? How do I maintain regular schedules and routines, things like that. So that task force will be providing those supports for parents. We have a public school task force team because they have some issues that in some ways might be different from some of our independent schools, like state assessments, for instance. So we'll have resources for them. We have an advocacy task force that's going to keep track of governmental regulations and how that might impact all of us. So we'll have that information. And then lastly, we have a what we're calling a scenario what if team. And the what if team is going to be looking at just that. Well, what if this happens? To try to get ahead of the curve. We were so caught off guard in a lot of ways by these school closures that we're really scrambling. And with that scrambling comes a really heightened anxiety level. So this team will be looking specifically at what could be coming up, and let's look at how we can be prepared for that if in fact it does come up. So those were basically some of the issues that came up last night, and I wanted to let you know what we've been doing so far with that. Yes, thank you. There is a teacher education programs task force. Thank you. I read these out of order and then I forgot to go back to the order. So yes, there is definitely a team that's going to be supporting teacher education programs.
Hang on one second, Kitty. If you've just joined, I want to say, one, thank you for coming. I'm so sorry for the technological glitch. We set Zoom up today. I admit quite a few people, and they didn't make the change to the account. So there is a separate meeting going on. I'm going to paste the information for you in case you have a friend who is trying desperately to get in a meeting. This is an identical meeting being held right now by Kathy Leach. Second, the collaborative team that we're talking about is an amazing coming together of people from across the Montessori spectrum in the US and abroad. It includes the leaders of AMS, AMI, the National Center for Montessori in the Public Sector, MACD. I happen to know Rebecca Pelton's online. I'm not sure if Rich from AMS or Debbie from AMI or Gina Loftus from AMS are online. Please identify yourself. It includes Center for Guided Montessori Studies, a lot of teacher educators. It's not meant to be a closed group, but it's not meant to be an overwhelming, let's get 75,000 people just talking. It's a core group of people trying to curate quality resources and organize them and various messages to help you as school leaders, school owners, board members, teacher educators, and individual teachers at each of the ages that Montessori offers in the US and abroad to respond or share your experience with one another. And there's a lot of things that are happening out there. We want to acknowledge it. Lots of people are collaborating to do things. And it's not one group, it's all of us in a tapestry. If anything has brought us together and taught us that we are not tribal, that we're all Montessorians together, it's been the current situation. I want to thank all of the collaborators who are involved. The other thing is, if you have not already done so, please know this meeting is being recorded, that you are invited to show your webcam. The purpose of using this platform is when you speak, you can not only see us, we can see you. And a lot of you have your webcams off, and that's okay, but please feel free. And finally, keep yourself muted unless you're speaking so we don't get wild echoes. And if you have not done so, please type your name and email in so that we can reach you afterwards. We will post not only the video, we will post the notes that are happening in the chat. So you might want to have the chat tab open. We will strip the email addresses out of that so that your privacy is preserved when this thing goes public on the web. And then finally, remember, if you need to, go to Montessori.org at any time to take a look at any announcements that we've got up there, or go to any of our collaborative partners, because they're all going to be communicating in every way they can. It's not one center, it's many centers. Okay, Kitty.
On the teacher education side, I've already been contacted by one teacher education program who says, I don't know how to do this online. I'm going to hold a session on how to use Zoom for teacher education, and I'll be announcing that soon. So if you know anyone who needs that. Also, you know, as Tim said, there's a lot of people working on this, and so we're getting some great things that are coming from other people out there. They're sharing with us so we can share it, you know, with all of you. Today I got a how to use Google Classrooms video that someone has created that we'll be able to share. I heard from someone who has created a YouTube channel, and their school is creating videos of lessons, of music presentations, and they are inviting others who create materials that can be used by other schools to contribute. So once we have that information, we'll pass that out, and it'll have things that you can share with your children, as well as you can add some of the cool things that you create. So as Tim said, you know, it's really wonderful how we're coming together. And I think that's, you know, one of the silver linings that comes from this. Plus, we're all going to be really comfortable with virtual communication by the time this is over.
Right. So I wanted to add to that, and then maybe we can open it up to listen to all of you, and if there are needs that you would like to share with us. We are planning an international town hall that will be Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock Eastern. We're going to try to hold that just for our colleagues who are in Europe, Asia, and perhaps in Australia. Because I understand that now it's beginning to be an issue there. The other thing I would like to announce is that the Teacher Education Program Task Team includes Rebecca Pelton and her staff from McCarthy. The most recent information, and they are being very, Rebecca, do you want to, is that Rebecca?
Yeah, she's on.
Okay. Either Rebecca, you can jump in and say this, or I'll just go ahead and say it for you. The latest information from McCarthy is on their website. So you go to macty.org, click on news, and the very latest updates are there. The McCarthy staff is very responsive to adult learners, to teacher education programs. They're being as flexible as they can and really willing to work with everyone. So please know that Rebecca Pelton and her incredible staff are on that task force.
Thank you, Christine. Yes, we're trying, we are doing our best to stay on top of supporting the movement and the teacher education programs as there's the uncertainty about what to do with the teachers that are in their practicums. So please do not hesitate to contact our office. Go on the website, as Christine said. We also, Carolyn is keeping up with the Facebook page that we have. So we're here for you. And Christine, thank you again for your wise direction and your kind words today. It really is, it alleviates a lot of the anxiety. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's very much a collaborative event going on here. Thank you
I would turn my video on, but you wouldn't want to see that tonight.
Christine?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether we just want to reiterate the purpose of this meeting, which is really twofold. We would like to know what your needs are and your challenges in any area. And so we can eventually pool you with the right task force to give you the information, the resources, the strategies that you need. If you share something that you need, please keep it relatively brief. We don't need to hear the entire Chautauqua, but we want to know what your concerns are so we can, we have a sense of who is struggling with what. And the other thing that we're interested in is what you might want to contribute, either because of your skills in education or leadership or parent communications, but also things perhaps that your school is doing that are a little ahead of the curve of other schools. So we're interested in your needs and we're interested in your contributions tonight so we can begin to connect people with need with people with skill.
So let me read from the chat. Somebody is looking for information on teaching lower L remotely. That information, as Kitty said, is being put together. The resources, the how to do this remotely, all of that is going to be available, and we will share that link with you as soon as it's ready. I know that everybody is really anxious to get started on that, to do a really quality job and to provide high quality Montessori education online. Bear with us and be a little bit patient, but it will be ready. Kitty and her team are working amazing hours to get this ready for you.
If I can offer a thought, our biggest concern is first off for the health and safety of our teachers, ourselves, our family, and the families and children of our school. Last night, one of the things we talked about was that many of us, including our lab school in Sarasota, Newgate School, really wanted to stay open, to be family friendly. And when we realized the scope of the pandemic we're in, we realized that this was not just a question of the government ordering us to do something. It was really something we had to take very seriously. So there are a lot of questions that people are asking about how are we going to keep tuition flowing in or keep parents from going to daycare and giving up or, whatever. And there are so many issues. And one of the things that I would suggest to you is whether your school is charter or private or public, this is a real opportunity to create community among ourselves as Montessori educators and with the families of our school. For example, we held a community meeting of the faculty today at the Newgate School to just let them process with each other. We're holding a first community meeting of the parents tomorrow. Some schools did that much faster than we did, as well as the idea of the teachers as individuals beginning to think about what can we do to support children's continuing learning. The other thing is, I got to warn you, based on what we're seeing abroad and what I'm reading from the CDIC, it looks to me like that those states that are shut down for 2 or 3 weeks is probably, it could very well be the rest of the school year. And so let's hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And building community and relationships, in my considered opinion, is the absolutely key thing to do here. In fact, I'm going to invite one of our participants to unmute, and I'd like to introduce to you Jessie McCarthy. You there, Jessie?
Hey, Tim, can you hear me?
Yeah,
How's it going?
you're going great.
Nice to be here.
Jessie, if you could just quickly introduce yourself and what you do and where they can learn about you. And you said something to me last night after the meeting was over that I think these people need to hear.
Yeah, so we'll see if I can remember what it was, but I'll say I'm Jesse McCarthy with MontessoriEducation.com. I try to share as much helpful stuff for parents, teachers as they can on Montessori and just, working with children in a positive way generally. But I think, Tim, maybe you're speaking about that there's a real opportunity once all of this is over. So there's a silver lining that parents might be able to see that when they were in traditional schooling, maybe their kids weren't gaining really that much. And maybe this is an opportunity for us to show them what they could be gaining in Montessori or in Montessori approach to education and working with children. So I think we have a real opportunity, a lot of ups and downs along the way, but there's a real opportunity here. So
Jessie also has a really interesting podcast that is free called Montessori, I think it's Montessori Education.
Yeah, it's called the Montessori Education Podcast, and then with Jesse McCarthy, but yeah, thanks.
You might want to share that with your parents. That's certainly a lot better than scholastic books.
Thank you. I don't know how good of a comment that is given scholastic, but thank you.
Well, we love scholastic too, but the worksheets are not us.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I jump in here, Tim, and add Jesse's point? It's Karin here from Hong Kong.
Hi, Karin.
Hi. Hi. I just want to say that hi guys. We in Hong Kong, we've been closed since the beginning of February. And just to add to Jesse's point, we did turn it around and say, hey, this is an opportunity for us exactly to do what Jesse said, show our parents that Montessori kids. So a lot of the arguments from parents was like, you're not giving me school and you're giving me even less than the other schools, because we all know that everything about Montessori happens in the classroom. So when there's no classroom, the online just doesn't work. And there's a lot of this kind of angst from the parents. And what we did was say, look, obviously everybody's doing everything they can, but at the same time, you will see through this that even that it's during times like this that the Montessori kids really shine through. They're independent, they're resourceful, they want to do stuff. You will see that. And and that also, and also the other point we made was that we're so individualized. So throughout this time, what we've been doing is creating resources for our teachers, kind of by grade level, but saying to our teachers, look, here's all the stuff by grade level for elementary, but you pick and choose what you deliver to student A and student B. And then we said, look how individualized this is. Look how well your teacher knows your child. So these are a couple of points that are, yeah, it's a time to highlight that as well. Thank you.
Karin Ann, I know that one of the things we want to do is have you with us, with Pete Judge from the Montessori School of Tokyo, and really do an in-depth live interactive conversation so that people can really get a sense of how you unfolded things. And you shared with us, I believe, was it last night, your operations plan? Or the
I shared with, I think, I don't know which group is, but I did share our sort of series of communication, just a series of letters that we've sent out since the beginning. It's quite a lot to read. There are 13 emails that we sent out over a period of 8 weeks, and it sort of shows the thought process that we went through. I just want to add that one of the things that we could have done better is that we were very good at writing and communicating a lot and dealing with our PTA a lot. But when schools closed, one of the things that we stopped doing was our monthly chats with our class parents, the representative parents of each class. We sort of forgot about that. And only a month later, when everybody was upset and school kept continuing to be closed, did we say, hey, we still can hold these. We can hold these on Zoom or Google Hangouts. And we picked that back up, and it gave us a window to explain to parents our difficulty, our situation, so that they could then share with parents in their class. Instead of being part of that that gripe, complaining, they could then carry the school's message. So that's one thing that I would say, you know, try and still keep those core parents together and help them to understand you.
Several of you are asking if you could have access to those communication letters that Karin shared with us. We can put some of those up on the Facebook group, Montessori Foundation Conversations group, and we can get those up there later tonight or tomorrow morning for you. And thank you for sharing them, Karin. They're great.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's quite a lot. Everybody will have their own way of dealing with their community. If people could just take the ideas and word it in their own way. Just one quick thing, and I'll stop. Some schools that are later to the game have used the medium of video much earlier than we did in terms of announcing things to the parents. And that is something to consider. Like when you're closed, or, you know, maybe within the next few days, you might send a video very short to your parents saying, you know, I know we're all in this together. It's hard. I've seen that work well for some other schools. We didn't do that. We were just using writing all the time, but it's something to think about.
Please be sure to mute yourself if you're not talking right now, because the microphone picks up all of the background conversations.
I'd like to follow up on what Karin is saying. Last night in our meeting with the level teams, one of the teachers made a suggestion that every teacher call every parent this week, you know, or the very first week that you're closed, if some of you are still open, and, you know, reassure them you're going to be, you know, you're either working on a plan, or tell them what your plan is. Find out what their needs are. What are their situations? Are you at home with your child? Are you trying to work? What do you feel you need? And I think, you know, it's all about relationship. When they know we care, it goes a long way. And another suggestion that I thought was really good is for the teachers to have daily office hours when they're on Zoom and available for parents just to come in and ask questions, get help. And, you know, one of the things that we've talked about as the goals for this group to support you to keep children learning, to keep teachers working, to keep schools stable, and to keep families healthy and flourishing. And if we're all working to do those things, and really keeping that idea that the communication is key.
Just, Kitty, I'd like to just piggyback on something you said. As a former head of school, sometimes I made the mistake of asking my teachers to do something without actually sitting down and having a discussion. So how are we going to do this? So the teachers are speaking with one voice, and teachers, like parents and children, are and school leaders are under a tremendous amount of stress right now. So if you do institute teacher contact with parents, I would strongly advise you as a head of school to have a little mini online conversation with your teachers. So what are some of the key talking points and the key questions you want to ask? Don't leave it up to teacher discretion entirely, because it may go all over the place and turn more negative than positive. And I think that's the role of leadership in this.
Can I add to that? When we were creating content, we wanted to make sure that while teachers had the ability to distribute content at their children's level, we also wanted to make sure we had always one set of standard content that everybody had access to by different level, so that there was some commonality and then some pick and choose exactly that. And then how do you monitor, at the beginning we sat on the Google, we observed the Google Hangout groups that our teachers were having with their children. I just wanted to bring back one point. I'm just reading the chat. There's a lot of questions about tuition and the messaging there. One thing that we keep coming back to tell our parents is that our job is to make sure that the quality of education that we have right now is maintained for next year for your children in the future. That's what we need to do. And if we start returning tuition, taking no pay leave for our teachers, you're going to lose the best teachers, you're going to demotivate your staff. So we need to make sure that what we have is solid for the future. And that's why, and the operation of a school is a community effort. We need to work together to continue what we've all built to be great. And, and we always end with saying, thank you for supporting that. But the point is, the top priority for you guys, for us, is that next year we're as good as we are now, and you can't mess with that.
Thank you, Karin. That is such an important message, and we're hearing that over and over and over and over again from schools. And I think if we can try to cultivate a mindset of giving parents the benefit of the doubt, they have their children at your school for a reason. And if we talk to them the way Karin just explained that, and we keep in mind what Tim was saying about the importance of relationships, we can keep this community that you have together during this tough time. Help them feel a part of that. Help them feel like they're being helpful. It's part of their meaningful work, if you will, throughout this time. So other issues, anybody else want to, we've been doing a lot of talking. Do any of you, are you ready to jump in and share some of your concerns, your questions?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep jumping in, but I see a couple of questions about, did parent concerns change with time? And if so, what were the biggest along the way? I think, and then did we make accommodations for parents who lost their jobs? Yes, we have a financial plan in place, a support plan. So that's what we always tell parents, come to us if you have problems and difficulties. And we do have a fund like that, luckily, so we can do that. That makes a big difference. Did parents' concerns change with time? Yes. At the beginning, it was difficulties about, getting used to the whole online platform and, trying to strike the right balance between providing enough stuff and not too much stuff. Of course, in the adolescent age, that's even harder because most of the secondary kids in Hong Kong at the beginning, they were completely overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that was coming out. Traditional schools, obviously, but a lot of schools had to adjust with that. Getting learning habits in place, those were the kinds of things that parents were more concerned about that first. And then the second thing, 3 weeks into our journey was, okay, school is getting cut. How are you going to make up more school time for us? A lot of people wanted us to go into the summer. We had lots of reasons why we couldn't. We ended up doing 2 weeks extra in the summer. But people saying, can you extend your day longer when we come back? Can you not take the spring break and all kinds of stuff? So that was the second one. And then the third one was the tuition. So when at 4 weeks of school closing, it was announced that it would become 10 weeks. That's when all the tuition stuff came in. And at the moment, some people have basically stopped paying tuition and said, I'm not going to pay anymore for the end of the year. Not many, but that does happen. And then you have to figure out, well, what are you going to do about that? Are you just going to, you can't really be on people's back too much at this time. So, but overall, everybody is pretty much on track with keeping up with tuition.
But you know, Karin Ann, you're bringing up a really interesting leadership communication point, which is once you get a sense from other schools or even an inkling from people in your school that they're having stressors in a certain area or confusion, answer the question before it's asked by too many people, beat them to the punch. It would be really healthy for schools to develop a set of FAQs. These are some things that you may be thinking about. We'd like to answer them in advance. So it's in a sense, it's beating them to the punch, because once parents or teachers have asked the question, in a certain level, you're on the defensive. You know, you're having to come up with an answer. Whereas if you address it beforehand proactively, sometimes it vents off some stress. So having discussions with your leadership team, what questions are you hearing? What questions might come up that we should have an answer for is very good proactive thinking in these kinds of situations. It's part of the scenario planning that Christine was talking about earlier.
Yeah, and the other thing is that with every communication, we always started the letter with a degree of understanding of how difficult this is for parents. So thank you very much. Like, always acknowledge their difficulty first, and then go into what you're dealing with. That was the structure of pretty much every communication.
So again, with you, Karin, and with Pete Judd, and by the way, I shared a part of an email that Pete Judd sent to me where he had a link to the file you can download of the plan they used in Tokyo. And again, we'll upload what Karin Ann has sent to the Foundation's conversation group and whatever other place we end up archiving, because people are asking to see a lot of resources. One of the things the task force is working on is what is the structure of that neutral place going to be? Because it is going to be open space and anyone will be able to go to it. But again, the goal is to get it curated so that we're not just throwing out any old junk. If you've just recently joined the meeting, I want to remind you, this particular conversation is hosted by the Montessori Foundation and the International Montessori Council. It is being recorded. Recording will be uploaded to the Montessori Foundation's YouTube channel. It will be made public. The notes of the chat will be there, stripped of any emails that have been put in. And if you have not already put in your own email, please do so now. If you want to hear from us in the future that we know you attended the meeting and you asked some questions.
Okay, so we have another question here about using various platforms at various levels. You know, I think that is an individual conversation for each school to have ultimately, but our technology team will be looking at platforms, and Kitty's team is also going to be providing information on how to do online learning with your students. So again, you know, we're getting there. Go ahead, Kitty.
I just want to say that I think a school does need to be unified.
Okay.
You need to be meeting with your faculty regularly and talking, as John said, about what is the message, and keeping them, keeping your faculty inspired with the importance of this work. And what we're able to give to families in our community. But I also think that as far as different platforms, it is appropriate to use different platforms at different levels. But I don't think you want to do that just haphazardly. You want to have a plan. For instance, Seesaw can be a great sharing tool. You know, families can do little videos of their their toddlers or their 3 to 6 actually doing a task that has been recommended by the teacher, and then then it can be shared on Seesaw and everybody can see it and enjoy it. Or a Facebook page, a private Facebook page could serve the same goal. A Zoom meeting may be more appropriate for circle time once or twice a day for toddlers or 3 to 6 year olds, where a Google Classroom is much more sophisticated and provides other opportunities, or Microsoft Teams. And so you want to look, just like we do at school, at the needs of each level. Our classrooms don't look the same at each level, and there's a reason for it. What if we're going to stay true to Montessori, we're always looking at what is developmentally appropriate, what works for our children. And I think a good philosophy to be sharing with your teachers is that what they create, whatever platforms they're using, because they may be using more than one, whatever they're creating is the prepared environment that they are creating for their children, and to create it with the same care that they create their classrooms.
Thank you, Kitty.
One of the questions that I see asked is, what would happen if the internet becomes overloaded? And of course, that's possible, but I suspect you're going to see more people watching Netflix and so forth by cable or satellite than by internet. What really could happen is that platforms like Zoom could start to slow down if the usage really grew exponentially, but we'll just have to see. And I think, as Kitty said, we have to be very flexible, and mostly we have to keep communication links going with parents, find out what's working for your teachers, find out what's working for kids, find out what's working for the parents, and be very responsive as the situation evolves. I think Karin Ann could say from her experience that after the first 4 weeks, people's attitudes about this whole thing really start to change. It's wearing. Paul Epstein was online sharing with us, and he's in Beijing, saying that, boy, 8 weeks in, and it was really stir crazy, and now people are beginning to go back out into the parks and walk and so forth. Again, there's so much information. Like last night asked the question, is it okay to allow parents to come to our school and use the playground? I'll let you all talk that one out. And again, please feel free to unmute yourself and talk in.
Well, I heard the Dr. Fauci on the news today say, no, don't take your kids to playgrounds. I mean, I think if, it going out in your own yard or going for a walk with your children where you're not having physical contact with other people is fine. Having play dates with 1 or 2 people who've also agreed to be secluded and not have contact with anybody else is okay. But once it starts branching out, then that's not social distancing anymore.
Right. Exactly. So somebody asked a question about small Montessori programs. The resources will be available to everybody. We're looking at as Tim said, we're looking at the very, very best way to organize those. And we will get you the link as soon as it's available, but we really are committed to everything we're providing being high quality and not just throwing out any old thing because we're all anxious and we want something right now. So, the idea of taking some time, this is part of what the self-care team is going to be working on, is sending out some ideas for how we can all kind of de-escalate and take responsibility for that for ourselves, so that we're not making decisions out of panic, but that we're making thoughtful decisions that we know are going to be best for our families and for our children. So, if you're a small school, there might be different resources that you avail yourself of, but they will all be in the central location.
I just want to do my periodic reminder that this meeting is being recorded. There is a chat going on. If you have not already done so, please put your email down so that we know that you were here and can communicate with you. We will be posting the recording of this meeting on the Montessori Foundation's YouTube channel. It'll also be in the IMC members area, but it'll be publicly available, along with a version of the chat that has been stripped of your emails. One of the things that I really invite all of you to think about is this. Montessori is a lot like Starbucks and Volvo and Apple computers. It's a lifestyle product. It's for those people who love it, it's part of their identity. And for some people, that's a real turnoff. They don't want to be part of a cult, but we really ought to think about what's the relationship between our families and the school. Are they tied to their child's teachers and not the school? Is it a transactional relationship, as John Wolfe would say, where they pays their money and they're doing it one day at a time? Or are they stakeholders? They actually feel like they're part of the community. What's going on right now is the best shot you're going to get in your lifetime to bond your families to your school. And many small schools that fail to do this correctly are almost certainly going to have economic crisis, and they may close. The best thing you can do is not simply throw work out there, workbooks, whatever. What you need to do is look at helping your teachers to stay sane, getting the parents, as Karin Ann pointed out when she was speaking about the experience in Hong Kong, that the parents remember that supporting the school is supporting the teachers that their children love. And not supporting the school is the same thing as putting those teachers out of work, as well as causing the school to fail. But that together, as a community, whether your school is 15 kids, or like Karin Ann, you must be up about 1,000 kids right now, right, Karin?
Yes. Sorry, I wasn't muted. I realized. Yes, we are at 1,000 kids.
So
Correct.
it's all about creating a perception of real, authentic community. Kitty Bravo, you can speak to this. 12 years ago, we started the Center for Guided Montessori Studies, which was the first accredited blended distance and live teacher education program. And the question you and Jonathan and Mark and I were asking, along with the people that we got involved early, was can we create community when people aren't breathing the same air? Can you talk for a minute about does it work and what works?
Yes, but it has to be really interactive. That's why I think it can't be just sending home worksheets and videos. It has to be every day, some contact with the teacher and the children. If you read, I did put in the chats, I put the notes from the documents with the notes from each level. And in the, if you look at the infant toddler level, one of the team members said in the Zoom meeting, the teacher needs to say each child's name. Oh, I see Christine. Hi, Jonathan. And, it's something that simple that is just going to make them feel welcome and connected. But when we first started, I led the first cohort through our online course. And that was, I was skeptical like everybody else. Will this work? And what I knew we could deliver the content, but could we build community? And could we be the catalyst for the transformation of the teacher? And I knew within 3 weeks we were going to be okay, because all of us, myself and the adult learners, couldn't wait to get back online and see what the other people had posted in our discussion boards and to connect in our weekly meetings. And within 3 weeks, one of my adult learners said, this is changing the way I work with children. And you can have that same kind of impact with the children and the families you work with if we stay connected. And, I think as Montessorians, we all know that it's the soft skills, it's the character building, it's the social responsibility, it's all those intangibles that are the real benefits of Montessori. And we can really build on those by the relationships and the communities that we build by staying connected with people right now when they're going to feel so isolated. And that's just even more important than anything we do academically.
Thank you, Kitty.
Jess asked a key question I'd like to address, and that is, what's the best way for anyone to keep abreast? So I want you to think about it this way. There are about 75,000 Montessori educators in North America. I haven't got any clue how many there are in the world, but there's quite a few. Not all speak English. There are at least, Rebecca, how many societies do we have in MACD? She may have logged off. There's, most of us think in binary terms, AMS, AMI. Trust me, there are far more.
Yeah, I can tell you that, you know, there's AMS, AMI, IMC, MEPI, too many P's, PAMS, and then, what's that?
MEPI.
Yeah, sorry, I got it wrong. But then there, you know, then there's a lot of independent programs as well. So there's a lot of us out there.
So my point in answer to Jess's question is, this is not like there's been one super organization for all of Montessori. What we are is a collaborative group that cuts across societies. We're encouraging all of the members to look at those things that we own or create, whether individually or together, that we're willing to share so that we're not all creating from scratch. And our collaboration is not to limit what AMI sends out to its members and any of the regional or state organizations send out to their members, or any of the Facebook groups or the bloggers or whatever. There are lots of different sources. What we're trying to do, though, is make information available so that those organizations that want to work with us have access to it and can fire it out. So don't be surprised if you don't hear resources coming at you from many different directions. Just look for trusted sources, whether it's a group like a Trillium Montessori, which is a group of collaborators and partners that work together, or a major school that you know and love, or an independent training center. The goal is, this is not the haves and have-nots. We're all in together. And one way to follow it would be watch for the Montessori Foundation's Facebook page or the IMC's Facebook page, which are in this chat, as just two examples, because we know, and in the group, especially the discussion group for the Montessori Foundation, because we know that that'll be one of the channels where we'll be at least telling people, go here, because a collaborative team has not yet figured out what's the best platform to put these curated resources on, where they can be freely available to anyone.
But we will post, and the immediate things that we will post probably tomorrow morning is some of the information that Karin has shared about her communication with her parents, in particular, the letter that she sent out about the tuition issues. And we've got a couple of other templates that we can put. The information that Kitty has shared, that is a set of notes from each of the levels task force. So information, for instance, about, you know, somebody's asked a question about making a 3-year-old sit in front of a screen while they get a presentation. That when you read those notes from the task force for the 3 to 6-year-olds, you'll see that it's much more about practical life activities in the home. It's not about trying to do Montessori at home. It's about trying to use the Montessori philosophy at home. Kitty, do you want to speak to that a little bit more?
Sure. I mean, what we're advocating for Zoom is not that you're going to do, for young children, is not that you're going to do a lot of curriculum. You're going to do more circle time activities. You may have a time of day when you do a a story reading or a storytelling. You could do a science experiment, and you could have already sent home to the parents the how-to so that they could then repeat it at home with their children. So the idea is that it would be really interactive things. It's not a lot of sharing of content. And then there'd be other suggestions for parents. It's different than for an elementary child who they can actually give a lesson and then give follow-up work and then have a class meeting for the children to be sharing, and the children can go into breakout rooms. You may not know this, but Zoom does breakout rooms, and so they can send them off into these separate spaces and pairs or threes or fours to work on a project just like they would at school. So it's just unbelievable what can be done. And right now it's a little scary to everybody because if you haven't done it, and little by little you'll get more comfortable with these things. And also we'll post as soon as I can get them nailed down and with the people who will do them. I'm going to post on the Facebook page and in the collaborative email group the time, date, and time for these meetings for teachers on how to use Zoom, and it will include suggestions of what kinds of things to do with Zoom based on the level, the actual level for the children. My goal is to get that out there happening within the next couple of days, because I know time is the essence. We want to get people started and feeling successful, and you just build up a little bit at a time. As you become more comfortable, as your teachers become more comfortable, they'll get new ideas. And I keep saying this over and over again, elementary and up, all the teacher has to do is come in with a few ideas, and the children will take over and do the rest. They're so much smarter about all of this than we are.
And that's something that someone brought up last night. One is that we can trust the children to find solutions to what the problems are, but we can also trust parents. I think it was Lori brought up that families are used to having their children at home. We feel a sense of responsibility because we care so much and we want to support, but parents know how to have their children at home, and we're just there to guide them and to give them some support with that, to continue this sense of community and relationship. But let's also keep in mind that parents can be pretty savvy too. So go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I need to go soon because I I have to get ready for my day here, but I just thought of 2 points, if I may just share, that I think are very helpful. The first one is that as your parents are doing all this great work at home, make sure they send in videos and photos of the children working and all that, and get that to your community quickly, because then that will build all this goodwill, and yeah, everybody's working, they're enjoying this work. That will help quell parents from saying this online stuff doesn't work for me and all that sort of stuff. The second thing that we've sort of grappled with is to understand that you will always have people in your community who will not be happy. And how do you come to terms with that? And just remember that these are in the minority, or try to understand your community. When you see, all of us, right at the beginning, people saying, when can you give me my tuition back? So we didn't jump to answer this question to the whole community quickly until much later, because it's only pockets, it's small people. Answer them individually before raising this to the level of the whole community. I would caution against sending a letter saying, well, we're not going to give back tuition, because then people think, well, everybody wants their money back. It's not true. It's just that those few who do are more vocal and more persistent. And always remember that in designing how you talk to your parents throughout, and speak to the larger group, and try to understand the minority. How do you deal with them to try and manage that community going forward?
Well, that's a very interesting point you made, Karin Ann. Am I on, or am I muted?
You're good. Oh, now you're muted, John.
Okay, there we go. You know how some of us got in our teacher training that to decide in what which students to give lessons to, which children. You start with the children who are most normalized and most ready to learn, and then you create support and structure for the children who are least normalized, who are not receptive. The same principle is true in thinking about our parents and what we give to our parents during these times. If we were to think about who are our allies, which parents are naturally in tune with the values of the school, are positive thinking people, we want to identify the people that we can lean on to create support within the community. And on the other side, as Karin Ann was saying, we want to identify the people that are probably going to be the naysayers and come up with strategies to understand them, support them, and in some cases give them boundaries. It's really the same principle. Our allies and some of the dissenters, and we want to be thinking about those people and how we're going to work with them and support them.
I want to thank you, Karin. I know you've got to head in. How are things going in Hong Kong right at the moment? I think we'd all enjoy a quick update.
Oh, okay, sure. We went from, at the beginning when everything closed, everybody worked from home. We're really worried. We don't know how bad this is. You guys have the benefit of knowing that it is not so serious for the majority of the population. We didn't know this when we started. So now that we know this, we've had very stable situation in Hong Kong. We have a population of 8 million. We have 150 cases. We've tracked every case. We closed the borders early. We're obviously on a border with China. We are part of China. So that really made us act quickly. So now that things have sort of stabled down, you will see that people are back out a little bit in the street. Offices are open. It's still reduced. However, right now, the challenge that we are bracing ourselves for is that because the entire world has shut down, so many people have students in England, in the US, that schools and universities have shut down. All these kids are coming back home right now on planes, and they're all bringing germs in again. I mean, I don't mean it that way, but we have to brace ourselves for that. So suddenly, our quarantine measures announced by the government and that schools are taking have ratcheted up again. And there's basically saying, if you've come from overseas, please stay home for 14 days. I don't care where you're coming from. If you have a family member coming from a highly affected area, I don't care, that we don't want you in school. So we're thinking about what to do for our staff, because they started coming in again to produce videos for the kids to work together. And now we have to go out and say, okay, is there anybody at home who's just come back? And so it's now managing that second wave of actually, the disease possibly coming back into Hong Kong.
Thank you so much, Karin. I see Carol is on the phone. I assume that's Carol from Jakarta. Want to tell us what's going on there?
Yeah, we've only just shut down. The schools have just started closing, so we're still right at the very beginning, because we didn't have a lot of cases. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we're still right at the very beginning. Yeah. We've only got there's less than 100 cases in Indonesia. Well, that they will admit anyway, in Indonesia. So we're still right at the beginning of shutting down. So we're probably just like you are in the US with regards to what do we do, how do we work it, how are we going to communicate with our parents. Yeah, so I'm here to learn from people like Karin.
Thank you, Karin. Thank
It's
you.
nice. It's nice to see you, Carol.
Hi.
Hi. So, other questions, other concerns, other comments that you are just things that you feel like you need to talk about? We still have about 40 minutes left.
We will be holding more workshops. The plan is we're looking at the topics that are most needed. So we're imagining that there'll be focus groups, for example, for each of the age levels, to allow sharing of educators at that level. And hopefully by then we'll have some of the curated resources available. We'll be doing, as Kitty said, We're looking at whether we need to do live sessions for how to use some of the online platforms. We're going to ask Karin Ann and Pete Judds, who are more or less in the same part of the world and have had about the same amount of time to deal with this, a session sharing their experience in much greater depth with us. We're going to be having a workshop on economic, financial, re-enrollment issues. We're going to be doing a workshop on building community, all sorts of topics that are really coming from you. So if there's anything that you can think of that you really wish, please, if you haven't already seen it in the chat, put it in now, because this session is being held in part for us to hear what you as a random sample need. And then there's this second group going on right now, led by Kathy Leach.
Hello, team and everyone. My name is Veronica Fuebene. My first time joining the group, and I'm so grateful, team, for letting me in. I've been on the queue waiting to join and finally got in. So thank you. I'm learning and soaking up a lot. Thank you, everyone. And Karin, this is fascinating what you're doing. She's gone. Karin, no, she's gone. And just everyone. I'm picking up. I'm with the Child Unique, Cindy Acker.
And because you just joined, go back and you can scroll through the chat, but this recording will be on the Montessori Foundation YouTube channel, and I'll post the link to that tomorrow morning on the Montessori Foundation conversation group.
All right.
But there are a lot of resources that have been shared, and those are going to be posted on that Facebook group as well tomorrow. So welcome. We're glad that you finally made it in.
Yay.
Yeah, and let us know if you have questions or concerns that you'd like to share.
Thank you. I posted some questions and you answered, and I'll continue to engage. Great. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, Doctor. And again, for any of you who haven't already put your email in, please share with us your email. This particular platform did not require you to put in name or whatever, but if you want to be sure that we know you were here and can share with you, we'll add you to the email list. And when we post the chat, we will scrub your emails from the chat so that the public doesn't see them. And then finally, for those of you who are wondering, how can I get a copy of the chat? If you just take a moment and look at the bottom of your chat screen to the right side where next to file, there are 3 little dots. You put your mouse on that and click, you'll see an option to download, but you don't have to download until you're ready. Although I have been told that if you get kicked off, you don't see the chat portion you were seeing before, which is why we will upload with the video the full chat in case you find it useful. Is there anyone else that wants to speak or share anything?
Hi, I'm Patricia Colby. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
I live in Charlottesville, Virginia, so it's a relatively small town. And what I wanted to advise for you guys is that you consider also what your local schools are doing that are not necessarily Montessori schools. So for us, it's really important that our response and our time closed and returning to open and all that mirrors the other independent schools in the area. My school goes all the way through 8th grade, so we are, you know, compared with the other private schools. And also having close ties with those schools has helped me a lot with, you know, having someone to talk to and compare responses and figuring out, you know, what to do next and things like that. So don't overlook your local community, whether it's Montessori or not. I've also, through, you know, long story, but I'm also became a public information officer. So I actually sit in every week with the local city's response. So I hear what firefighters are dealing with, police is dealing with, the hospitals, the Department of Health. And that's given me a position in my school community of sort of being knowledgeable and have authority over what I'm saying, so that when the situation came to close, the governor of Virginia closed all schools on Friday for at least 2 weeks. It was not shocking or a surprise. I knew it was coming. People knew that I was very involved with all these local conversations. So that has helped me tremendously in communicating with my own community. So I just wanted to, you know, I greatly advise sort of somehow figuring out a way to connect with your other schools in your area, whether they're Montessori or not.
Thank you very much for that. Our advocacy committee is also connecting with non-Montessori national groups. For instance, NACCE came out with a statement today that is they're working to assure that early childhood teachers and hourly wage people are still going to be supported during this, because in some states it has caused some issues for some Montessori programs where the schools have been shut down, private and public, but daycare centers are being encouraged to stay open, which creates a whole other set of issues. But we're also monitoring what some of the other national organizations are doing so that we can share that information. And if there is a point that Montessori can be included in those advocacy efforts, that's certainly something that we'd want to look at.
Tim, can I say a word?
Of course, Dave.
So
You're muted, Dave.
You're muted, Dave.
yes, I have an ugly glitch around my microphone. I'm from the National Center for Montessori in the Public Sector, and I'd be interested to know if there's any public folks on here. Tim, you mentioned a work group or a subgroup, so if you could loop me in on that, I'd love to, you know, play a part there if I can. And
Dave, I made you the chair of that group. We just haven't let you know yet.
good to know.
Sorry about that.
Okay, and we're thinking about, we love this town hall idea so much, but since the public folks might have a smaller area of overlap, we were thinking we might host one or host on this channel or something like that. So
We are delighted to do that, Dave.
yeah, I thought we
Great
would.
idea.
We'll work with you in any way we can.
All right, so I'll check in tomorrow. It's getting late where you are.
Thank you, Dave. Somebody made a suggestion about doing some community service, particularly with places where elderly people are living. We did hear last night, and this may be regional, it may be state or local, I don't know. But we did hear last night that some of the facilities where older people are living and congregating are not accepting anything in the mail because they're afraid that that could bring in some germs.
They might welcome a video call in. So,
Right.
you know, assuming you can even get through to a nursing home or any other facility, they might really appreciate something where a group of children in their individual's home collectively sing or something. So you never know what will work. It's, again, create engagement in every way you can. Just as another aside, there are many other people who have not come forward, who are doing things. I know that Trillium Montessori has created sort of an open Facebook, sort of a support group for parents. I'm sure there are many of them out there. Again, this is very, very, there's so many people trying to help in every way possible. And so if there's something you think we should know, tell us about it. We may already know, but we may not. And if there's something that you feel that your school can do or that you've created, share it, like, you know, what Pete Judds did and what so many of you have. If you feel like you've done something well, send it in to, you know, Christine, to me, to Jonathan, to really anyone that you know who you think might be part of the collaborative. Or if you are a content creator and you want to be part of the collaborative, reach out to us, and guess what? If you think you're a member, you are. We'll make you one.
Okay, Kate, you have a question? Would you like to unmute yourself and just ask away?
Thank you so much. And yes, let me again echo everyone's gratitude for supporting us through these uncharted waters. My question would be that when we're doing online meetings and what have you, a lot of that is going to fall on our lead teachers. And so there will be the accountability that they are working. Is there any, suggestions, or do you know of any trainings that as a head of school I could invest in to have my assistants take so that they are staying connected and even growing in their knowledge of Montessori? Basically.
The Center for Guided Montessori Studies offers a 10-week online introduction course for infant toddlers, one for early childhood and one for elementary. The Center for Guided Montessori Studies, I'll put how to contact us in the chat. And our next one begins in April, and maybe we need to start one earlier than what we had. And I'll also see if we can discount the price during this time.
Thank you. That's what I was, because I also looked at the one that Trillium offers. Being able to get multiple connections so that our staff could do some types of training would be helpful at a price that we can all afford during this time. Thank you very much.
I would also suggest your assistant teachers participate in Zoom circle times.
Good idea. Thank you so much.
One of the other things we should say is that many of the people who are online are professional Montessori school consultants. The Montessori Foundation, we really have two hats. One is we help start schools, we help schools through challenging times, we help schools survive through crisis. We do all sorts of stuff. So there's many of the people that you can see on your screen are either full members of the Montessori Foundation staff or adjunct. You can reach out to us. Right now, we're doing a lot of stuff that's pretty high level, and we're just doing that off the clock. But if you really have a challenging situation, reach out to us and we can help. If you're an IMC member school, I don't know if you remember, but one of the benefits of being an IMC school member is you get an hour a year of free consulting from the Montessori Foundation. And there's also a mentorship networking service that is part of the IMC structure. I suspect AMS and AMI and MEPI probably have similar strategies. The other thing is there's support groups for parents. They're going to be hyper stressed. The most valuable resource you can give them is the touch from your own people, your own school. But it may help them if they come to sense that they're part of a much larger community of Montessori families. So there is the Montessori Family Alliance. There are other groups out there. They really vary in quality. There's parenting education programs offered by many of our collaborators, Jane Nelson's Positive Discipline, Catherine Cole's Redirecting Children's Behavior, Lorna McGrath's Montessori Specific Parenting Puzzle, which is done through the foundation. Those are all things that a parent might want to do when they're getting ready to tear their hair out with dealing with their children. And we probably are going to begin to do much more frequent live broadcasts like this for Montessori parents, where it's really interactive instead of a webcast. We do have Tuesday webcasts every Tuesday at 1:00 p.m. East Coast time. We have been doing a half-an-hour webcast for the last 4 years. And then Jesse McCarthy, who was on earlier, has a nice podcast. There's lots of stuff out there. Again, you just want to try to direct parents towards things you think will help them instead of trying to sell them downloadable PDF ditto forms.
And And we will also, Tim, with the parent support task force, we will be creating tools that we will share with you, educators and heads of schools, that you can then make your own and share those with your families, because we do know that, you know, having regular ongoing community connection with you is going to be the most vital, critical part of this to get all of us through this. So that'll be another resource that'll be available for you. Every single resource that we've talked about the whole time tonight is going to be available as soon as the technology team has figured out the best way to do that and to have it organized and have it curated. I know you're really anxious to get some of these resources. We are going to get them to you very, very, very soon. We will post some things on the Montessori Foundation Conversations group page so that you have some immediate things. But we don't want to just start pushing out a lot of stuff and have it be disorganized and not thoughtfully looked at before we share it. We're really, you know, we all want to be aware of keeping high quality, especially as, you know, as Jessie McCarthy said, the silver lining here is giving parents an opportunity to really appreciate Montessori maybe in a way that they never have before. So we want to make sure it's good Montessori, right?
Mm-hmm.
This video will be uploaded to the Montessori Foundation YouTube channel, maybe not tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's getting a little late on the East Coast, but it will be posted. So.
And the parenting resources, again, there's so many different people, but the Montessori Foundation was created specifically to promote a sense of identity on the part of parents that they're part of a worldwide movement. So you may know our magazine, Tomorrow's Child. The Montessori Family Alliance is the membership group that came out of that. You can check us out at montessori.org. The other one we mentioned tonight was Trillium Montessori. Maybe someone can spell that correctly. I think it's
Trillium.
Thank you. And that's
Welcome.
that's a great team of people are out there. There are lots of great people doing good work.
Somebody asked about how long the resources will be available. They'll be available for ever, I guess. We don't have plans to put them up and take them down. Let me put it that way. They will be there. So, any other? We've got a few more minutes. We've kind of monopolized the conversation here with a lot of our talk. Anybody like to jump in? Patricia, thank you for what you offered. Thank you to Karin. I wonder if we're done, Tim.
It could be. I'll just throw out a topic or two and see if anyone jumps on it. One is the issue of how are you going to pay the bills if you're not publicly funded between now and June? Another is enrollment for next year. How are you going to do that when your school isn't in session? Another is if you're running now, but your public schools are closed, are you putting your staff and children at risk? How do you manage your own stress? Those are just a few that came to mind.
Actually get this, but as contagious as this is, I was some of the ER like I did. It would be interesting to know.
Those are excellent.
People are actually dying from it.
That sounded like Mark Selden. Who was that?
I think it might be background noise, maybe.
Probably.
Somebody's not muted.
Hoping my son Mark would join because he has a lot to share.
Hello?
Hi, Megan.
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Great.
Good.
So this has been very informative. And I think probably, I know my head of school is on here. and I missed the call last night. Is there any information that you can share as far as, because I know the big question we're getting is pushback is obviously about tuition. You know, whether or not to send any information out initially about that, or if we should wait. You know, because we're in North Carolina. Our governor just closed the schools effective actually today for the next 2 weeks. So I was just wondering if there's any feedback or advice in that area.
John, do you want to take that? That's a scenario question, a thinking ahead question. You're muted.
You're probably more familiar with the people that are working on that than I am, Christine, or the task.
Well, so we're going to in the morning, we will post some letters from schools that have been dealing with this already, that are templates that you can use, make your own, to reach out to your families and explain to them why it's important that they continue paying tuition, is the short answer. So look for those on the Montessori Foundation conversation group.
One of the things that was said earlier this evening by Karin Ann in Hong Kong is don't just fire off a letter telling people they got to pay tuition.
Yes.
If you do need to say something because your parents think of the relationship as transactional, just say, look, you know, I just want to remind you that what feeds the gerbils and the teachers you love is your tuition dollars, and we're going to make this up together. We're going to get through this together. We're going to help you craft it, but the way I would generally say it is, look, when you enrolled in our school, you asked us to set aside one of a limited number of spaces. We're in it for you. We're not simply taking a holiday. We're working like dogs to figure out how we can create an experience that is not like a bunch of workbooks that children will get used to if that's all they're given, but really dumb them down. Our goal is to get them to think, to be active, to discover, to interact with each other, to be creators, to learn lessons of the heart, not simply memorize and forget. So the idea that the school's relationship with the families is not transactional, like your dry cleaner or your pharmacy, which do important work, let's face it. But this is more of like your congregation. And you really want to work on building up that sense of relationship, if you can, with your parent body.
I really liked Mary Beth's initial letter. It basically said, we're really busy putting up plans together and working on how to support you. We know tuition is an important question. We'll address it soon. I mean, basically, don't even go there right now. I mean, really be about how you're going to support them and focus on that. And if you can get away with that, I would, unless people are really pressing it.
And again, that's a great suggestion, Katie, and the letter from Mary Beth will also be put on the Montessori Foundation conversation group tomorrow morning. So you'll have some template to look at. And you know, the whole idea here is that nobody has to reinvent the wheel. We're all working together and coming together in an amazing way.
And then that other thing that we talked about, I mentioned earlier, you know, our goals, keep children learning, keep teachers working, keep schools healthy. You have to be showing the parents that you're giving them something. You know, right away, even if you aren't doing anything yet, reach out to them and let them know you're making plans, and you know, we're gonna be there for you, and then make plans and be there for them.
And
can I add to that?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I just think that's that recommendation to contact each family, I think will really help initially, especially where we are right now, and just is a great recommendation.
Thank you.
And there's going to be a lot of stress. You want to take care of yourself. You want to take care of your teachers. and you want to really, really do everything you can to get your parents talking and processing. You want to be sure that the relationship doesn't go adversarial if you can avoid it. Here's Kathy Leach. I see that you managed to end that meeting and join us. Kathy, anything you want to share?
Well, we had another meeting, another separate breakout session, and that just ended now. And I think, you know, having been on several of these meetings now, I'll tell you that all of the concerns tend to be very similar. But what's most, I guess, heartening here is that people are willing to share ideas, and as soon as we can get everything posted and shared between people, you all have so much of the wisdom and the practical ways of doing these things that, you know, I think a lot of our goal has to do with getting that put together in a place that's organized and easy to access. And I think everybody's anxious for that right now. So I know that will be my continued task tomorrow as well.
I can tell you that one of the things the Montessori Foundation does that we recommend that all of the other Montessori societies do is we actually run a school, which puts us in a very different mindset than people who sit in an office. And tomorrow we're going to have a 1 o'clock community meeting with the parents of our school. It'll be very interesting to see how that goes. We certainly recommend that you consider doing that. So it's, in our case, by the way, someone saying, should we move spring break? In Sarasota, we were fortunate that our spring break actually began on Monday. So today was the first day of spring break. So our parents are simply thinking that we're extending spring break an extra week. So in answer to the question of should you move spring break, you certainly could. Do check out, though, before you do it, whether your parents have made plans to go away during that spring break. And of course, they shouldn't. I got parents that wanted to go on a cruise this week and were very upset when they discovered they couldn't go on a cruise. So again, what we're really trying to advise parents is stay home. Don't have play dates with your kids' friends, even though that will make your kids nuts. You really want to stop this virus in its tracks, because the alternative could be kids that literally are critically ill or grandparents that pass away. We got to take this very seriously. And we want to overcome our own fear and keep the parents. One commentator on TV tonight was talking about we need the right balance between fear and panic and overconfidence. We need to be aware this is serious and we can get through this together.
In a very thoughtful way, in a you know, with some patience, being cautious, but you know, that's the whole point of this, is that we're all working together, and there are a lot of people that are working very, very hard behind the scenes to get this ready, and we'll have those resources for you as soon as we possibly can.
Anyone else want to say anything, or are you tired? Again, if you watch, go to the Montessori Foundation website, and on the front page, you'll see that Mary Beth Ricks has just logged in. How are you, Mary Beth?
Hi, I was unable to log in because you're still at the 100-person limit. So.
Yeah, we increased the Zoom, but they didn't apply for account yet.
Oh dear. Okay, well, I just was going to tell you, in case you hadn't heard, of course, the Bay Area is on shelter in place, so we can't leave our homes.
So this is Mary Beth Ricks, who was the person we were talking about a few minutes ago, who had a really good letter that she sent out to her parents when they started bombarding her. Mary Beth, you want to share anything?
No, just that we're now working with a different reality. We had a great plan set up where we were going to do Google Hangouts from the classrooms and, you know, do a check-in on the fish and a check-in on the different caterpillars we're growing and stuff like that with the Google Hangouts, depending on the age. But now all of the teachers have a different reality as we are sheltering in place until April 7th. So we're not supposed to go into school.
In your situation, are they allowed to go to the grocery store?
Yes, we can go to the grocery store, the hospital, the drugstore, emergency things only.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised we don't see more and more of that happening.
Yeah. Well, I wrote my letter today to tell the parents how we were going to do all these great Google Hangouts from the classroom and teach lessons and do all this wonderful stuff. And by the time I finished typing, the Shelter in Place Act had gone into place and I had to change my entire letter.
Mary Beth, I hope
We're very fluid out here in a moving reality.
I hear you. Can you share a copy of the original letter for those people that don't end up sheltering in place?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll post a couple of those letters. I'll put them together this afternoon and post them to the group.
And Mary Beth, I know that we have some of your letters in the collaborative, and I was going to transfer some, not transfer them, I was going to copy some of them to the Montessori Foundation conversation group, because people on this call.
Fine. You can use anything I've sent out.
Thank you so much. They're wonderful resources.
If any of you have time and want to be volunteers, Christine and Kathy and Jonathan are sort of the action team for trying to coordinate the volunteers. Kitty is, I believe, the chair of all the people that are working on content curating or lesson resource curating. But we need volunteers, and just reach out to Christine or Kathy, and they'll be happy to find a way that you can help out.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight. I hope you found it useful, and we certainly appreciate your input. The more input that we have from the community, the more we can put things together that you need. We really appreciate it.
Well, once again, there's a really great blog post from Andrew Cutt that I wish I could simply cut and paste and put in, but you can look up Cutt, K-U-T-T. Andrew wrote a blog several days ago saying the coronavirus is a life lesson in the fact that we are one community, and we've got to stop thinking about this country, that country, us, them, rich, poor. We're in it together. And this is a really big lesson. And it has to do with social justice and equity and gender and private, public, AMI, AMS, IMC, you know, Montessori, Gerbils, United, I don't know. We're all friends. Again, the recording will be posted as soon as it's processed and we can get it uploaded. The first recording was uploading during this meeting, so hopefully when I log off, it'll appear in public on the Foundation's Facebook. It's called something like Montessori Town Meeting. You should be able to find it, but if you look for the Montessori Foundation, you should pop it up. And if you have not already shared your email address and want to receive emails from us, please enter it. We are going to be posting a version of the chat, and we're going to strip the emails out before it's posted. So all we'll do is harvest those emails to be able to communicate with you. We're not going to put those online. And then finally, if you want a local copy of the chat, which is quite extensive after 2 hours, at the bottom of your screen, on the right lower side of your screen, you'll see 3 dots next to the word file. You click on that with your mouse, it should allow you to download the chat while the meeting is still going. But we will post it scrubbed. Probably that'll take longer than when we get the YouTube video because it takes time to do the scrubbing. Any last thoughts before we get off?
Thank you all for everything.
Thank you for your participation.
Thank you for hosting us.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Night.
Night, everyone.
Night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Okay.
Good night.
Night, John Boy.
Night, Sue Ellen.
We'll leave the meeting going for a few minutes so that people can download the chat if they want to, but I will stop the recording.